Next on WoodSongs, we celebrate our 900th broadcast with founding member of the Byrds and inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's Roger McGuinn.
To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven.
And special guest folklorist John Lomax III.
The television broadcast of the WoodSongs Old Time Radio Hour is presented in part by Kentucky Tourism. Information for families, fans, and corporate conventions about the bluegrass state of Kentucky is online at KentuckyTourism.com. By the Big Ass Fan Company, manufacturing industrial-sized fans for warehouses, ranches, schools, corporate offices, and the military worldwide. By the Martin Guitar Company in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, making handcrafted acoustic guitars since 1833. By VisitLex.com, providing information and activities to visitors of historic Lexington, Kentucky, the home of the WoodSongs Old Time Radio Hour.
Here on the Louisiana Hayride, his name is Hank Williams.
From the Grand Ole Opry, Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys.
Hi, this is Bruce Horns. Hi, this is Kevin Moe.
Hey folks, this is Bela Fleck.
Hi folks, this is Sam Bush.
Hello, this is Odetta.
This is Joan Baez, and you're listening to the WoodSongs Old Time Radio Hour.
And now, gather the family around and sit back in your easy chair. It's time again for the WoodSongs Old Time Radio Hour, our worldwide celebration of grassroots music. Let's welcome folk singer, author, and tree hugger, Michael Jonathan.
One of the most beautiful art forms that I know is something called folk music. Folk music, that acoustic rural sound that celebrates communities and families, and certainly the greatest stage in the world, which is your own front porch. There's the front porch round the old home place. All my troubles disappear without a trace. And children play all summer long. The world feels right, like nothing's wrong. And fireflies dance on a starry night round the old front porch tonight. Round the old front porch tonight. There's a front porch round my true love's eyes. I could sit and watch that girl all my life. And in her eyes this world feels right. And she's a gentle and a peaceful sight. And since the day that girl became my wife, I've had a front porch round my life. I've had a front porch round my life. We need a front porch round the world. We need a front porch round America. We gotta slow it down and learn to set a spell. start serving lemonade instead of hell. I wish these leaders would outlaw fear. I wish they'd lead from a rocking chair. We need a front porch round the world. We need a front porch round the world. We need a front porch round the world. And welcome everybody to the beautiful and historic Lyric Theater in our hometown of Lexington, Kentucky. We're coming to you from the crossroads of America's folk and bluegrass music, the gateway city to the beautiful Appalachian Mountains. So much of this art and music does come from here, and we're very, very proud to be able to bring you our show from this stage at the gorgeous Lyric Theater. Isn't this a nice place to have our broadcast? Artists come from everywhere to be on our stage. You don't have to be famous to be on WoodSongs. You just have to be very, very good. The artist that we're dedicating this entire broadcast to is one of the icons of popular music. He is one of the pioneers of the guitar. He is voted as one of the top 100 guitarists of all time by Rolling Stone magazine. He's a Grammy Award winner. He started his career with the Chad Mitchell Trio, Sweethearts of the Rodeo. He recorded with Judy Collins, Bob Dylan, and Simon and Garfunkel. He's founding member of the Byrds. He's inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he's going to do a song from a very, very special project. But let's listen to his great body of huge work that he had. Huge hits in popular music throughout the 60s. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. And that wasn't the only song. He had another massive hit that was fueled by all kinds of crazy psychedelic jazz kind of things, and a big, big song. But then the song that introduced the sound of the 12-string Rickenbacker to the world. Just a stunning, stunning sound that became just an iconic sound of rock and roll music with a song written by a folk singer. Now, we're going to introduce him to you. He's going to play that song at the end of this broadcast, so stay right where you are. But we're going to dip into a very special body of work that he's got, and he's going to introduce himself with a beautiful song called Well, Well, Well on his 7-string Martin guitar. Please welcome our friend Roger McGuinn to the WoodSongs. Old time radio.
This is a song Bob Gibson used to do back at the Gate of Horns. Well, 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 who's that a-calling? Well, 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 hold my hand. Well, 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 night is a-falling, spirit is a-moving all over this land. God told Noah, build him an ark, build it out a hickory bark. Old ark a-moving and the water started to climb. There's gonna be a fire, not a flood next time. Well, 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 who's that a-calling? Well, 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 hold my hand. Well, 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 the night is a-falling, spirit is a-moving all over this land. World's not waiting for the Lord's command. He's gonna build him a fire that'll sweep the land. And thunder out of heaven coming Gabriel's call, and the sea's gonna boil and the sky's gonna fall. Well, 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 who's that a-calling? Well, 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 hold my hand. Well, 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 night is a-falling, a spirit is a-moving all over this land. Well, well, well.
A beautiful song. Well, well, well. Roger McGuinn, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Michael.
You mentioned Bob Gibson. There was a teenager in Chicago in school, and someone came and visited your school and opened up the whole world of folk music to you. Tell me that.
Yeah, well, I was going to school, high school, and my music teacher was a 23-year-old lady who was into folk music. She played guitar, and she was friends with Bob Gibson. So she invited Bob, who was very big in Chicago at the time, to come to our high school and play a 45-minute set for us. And I saw him come through the door. I was into Elvis Presley before that, and I thought, wow, this is going to be something like Elvis. But he came in with a banjo, and I went, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this. But I did. I loved it. And he did that song, and he did a lot of picking and telling stories, and he got me so excited. I went running up to my music teacher and said, what was that? What kind of music was that? And she said, that's folk music. And I said, wow, I love it. And she said, you know, there's a school that just opened up in Chicago 3 months ago called the Old Town School of Folk Music. Why don't you go over and check it out? So I did. I went over there and I enrolled, and Frank Hamilton taught me how to play the guitar and banjo.
Hey, tell people who Frank Hamilton is. He's
Frank Hamilton, he's a guy, he came from California, and he was friends with Will Geer and quite a few people. He knew Pete Seeger, and he, in fact, subbed for Pete Seeger and the Weavers after Eric Darling left. Right. Pete left and Eric Darling was in the Weavers, and then Frank Hamilton was in the Weavers. He's an excellent guitar and banjo player. He's still around. He's in Atlanta, and he's got a school for folk music down there, kind of like the one he had in Chicago.
Right, and he helped introduce the song "We Shall Overcome" to Pete Seeger, who introduced it to Martin Luther King. So Frank has a very important part of the legacy of American folk music.
Yeah.
And I want the listeners to know that Roger and I are going to be doing a in-depth exploration of American folk music for this whole broadcast, because Roger has pioneered a very special, incredible legacy project about American folk music, and we're going to talk about that next. But right now, let's dip into a very special project, appropriately titled the Folk Den Project. And this is a tune off this beautiful 2 volumes of a 4-CD set called Folk Den. This is from Folk Den number 1, Rock Island Line. It is Roger McGuinn on the WoodSongs, Old Time Radio.
Well, a Rockland line, it is a mighty good road. Rockland line, it is a road to ride. Rockland line, it is a mighty good road. If you want to ride, gotta ride it like you find to get your ticket at the station on the Rockland line. A, B, C, double X, Y, Z. Cat's in the cupboard, but you don't see me. The Rockland line, it is a mighty good road. A Rockland line, it is a road to ride. Rockland line, it is a mighty good road. If you want to ride it, gotta ride it like you find to get your ticket at the station on the Rockland line. Well, I may be right, I may be wrong. You know you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. The Rockland line, it is a mighty good road. Rockland line, it is a road to ride. Rockland line, it is a mighty good road. If you want to ride it, gotta ride it like you find to get your ticket at the station on the Rockland line. Jesus died to save my sin. Glory to God, I'm going to see him again. Yeah, the Rockland line, it is a mighty good road. Rockland line, it is a road to ride. Rockland line, it is a mighty good road. If you want to ride it, gotta ride it like you find to get your ticket at the station on the Rockland line. Moses stood on the Red Sea shore, swatting the water with a 2x4. The Rockland line, it is a mighty good road. Rockland line, it is a road to ride. Rockland line, it is a mighty good road. If you want to ride it, gotta ride it like you find to get your ticket at the station on the Rockland line. Yeah, the Rockland line, it is a mighty good road. Rockland line, it is a road to ride. Rockland line, it is a mighty good road. If you want to ride it, gotta ride it like you find to get your ticket at the station on the Rockland line.
That's fun, that's good. CD project called Folk and 4 CD set, just a beautiful body of work. And we get, as the show goes on, we're going to explain a little bit more. But let's clarify things about your career, because you started out as a banjo-playing folk singer.
Yes, I did.
And then you eventually found some friends of yours, and you became a band called the Byrds.
Yep.
Which changed the trajectory of folk rock music. And you discovered what you found was an amazing sound of a 12-string Rickenbacker electric guitar.
Yep. Well, I was watching the Beatles movie, A Hard Day's Night, and George Harrison had one. So I traded in my 5-string long neck banjo and a 12-string Gibson guitar that Bobby Darin had given me, and some cash, and I got the Rickenbacker electric 12.
And you found in the studio that if you really compress the heck out of the thing, it would have this amazing ring that became the trademark sound of the Byrds.
Yes, it did.
And so
called it the jingle jangle sound.
The jingle jangle sound, which everybody knows what that means. So you're here with a very specially designed Martin guitar. Explain what we've got here, because it sounds probably to the audience like you're playing a 12-string guitar.
Well, 12-string guitars have double strings, so I thought it'd be good to get the double string on a 6-string guitar, so you'd have that jingle jangle sound and the flexibility of being able to bend it like, or do little runs like. So it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife of a guitar. Yeah. You can play these. Sounds like a 12-string when you do that, but you can do the other stuff too.
Right. So this is a guitar you had a hand in design.
I designed it for Martin. Yeah. I went to Dick Boak, the artist rep guy, and we drew it out on a paper napkin, and they made me one in the custom shop. And then some other guitar players played it, and they said, "Hey, I want one too." So they made a whole run of them.
Well, so as the Byrds had their rocket ship ride, I mean, the Byrds were only together for about 24 months, correct?
Before we got a hit.
Yeah, give me the Cliff Notes version of the story of the Byrds.
Okay, the Byrds came together. I was playing solo at the Troubadour, opening up for Hoyt Axton, a friend of mine, folk singer. And in fact, I got to play on his first album called The Balladeer on Horizon Records. I got to sing harmony, and that was fun. But I was opening up for him, and I'd been influenced by the Beatles. So I was starting to put a little Beatle rock into my folk songs, and the audience wasn't going for it. But there was one guy who came backstage after the show and said, "Hey, I like the Beatles, and I like folk songs. Let's write some songs and see what happens." His name was Gene Clark. Mm-hmm. And So Gene and I started writing songs, and gradually, every day we'd sit out in the front room of the Troubadour writing songs, and this guy came in and started singing harmony with us, and he said, "I want to be in your band." And I said, "We don't really have a band, David." And he said, "Oh, come on, man, if I can be in your band, I know this guy's got a recording studio we could use for free." I said, "You're in." And that was the nucleus of the Byrds, David Crosby and Gene Clark and myself. And then we got a drummer, Michael Clark, and Chris Hillman to come over from Westwood, where he was in a bluegrass band called the Scottsville Squirrel Barkers.
And your first hit was Mr. Tambourine Man, right?
Uh-huh. Jim Dixon, our manager, was a friend of Bob Dylan's, and he had access to Bob Dylan's demo, a song. Now, Bob Dylan's very particular about recording. Yeah. He doesn't like to do multi-track. He's kind of like, turn on the mic, and whatever happens, happens, and if it's good, it's good, and if it isn't, you try it later. So he had this demo of Mr. Tambourine Man that wasn't quite good enough to use. And so Jim Dixon, our manager, got a copy of it, and we all sat around and listened to it, and we liked it, and I worked up an arrangement for it. See, originally it was in like a 2/4 time, like, "Well, hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy and there is no place I'm going to." And I put a little Bach-like figure to it. And changed the time signature from 2/4 to 4/4 and kicked it up with a Beatle beat, and that was it. And we had the harmonies in there, and cut it down for size because it was 4 minutes long, and radio wouldn't play anything over 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Right.
So we had to chop it up a little bit.
You know what's amazing? I'm standing here and I'm witnessing an epic reproduction of musical history in front of me. So let's get back into your music again, because we want to introduce an extremely passionate project of yours. But let's go ahead and set the flavor. You've got another project called Stories, Songs, and Friends. It's another beautifully packaged body of work that you put together. This is called Leave Her Johnny. It is Roger McGuinn on the WoodSongs, Old Time Radio.
This is a song the sailors would sing after a voyage when they leave the ship, and it was kind of sad because the ship had been their home for a long time. Oh, I thought I heard the old man say, leave her, Johnny, leave her. It's a long, hard pull to your next payday, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Sing that with me. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, the voyage is done and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her. So every time I come up with a chorus, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. I'll do the rest. Voyage is done and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her. Oh, the skipper was bad, but the mate was worse. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. He'd blow you down with a spike and a curse, and it's time for us to leave her. Here we go. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, the voyage is done and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her. Pull your lubbers or you'll get no pay. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, pull your lubbers and then belay, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, the voyage is done and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her. And now it's time to say goodbye. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Them pilings, they's a drawing nigh, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, the voyage is done and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her. One more time. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, the voyage is done and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her.
Celebrating show 900 on WoodSongs with the amazing Roger McGuinn. So Roger, you started as a folk singer. You became the leader of one of the most important rock bands of the 1960s for reasons that maybe we'll get into in the second half hour now, but you decided to pull back from the idea of stardom and rock and roll and stuff, and you went right back into that world of folk music. And I want to set this up a little bit. In 1993, when Bill Clinton became president, there was a little over 100 websites on planet Earth. 2 years later, Roger McGuinn pioneered one of the most amazing online musical projects in history, and that's what we want to start talking about. So Roger, tell everybody the name of this website.
It's called the Folk Den.
Folk Den.
And it's named after the room at the Troubadour where the Byrds got together. It was a little place where they had coffee and sold picks and strings.
Well, we're going to talk about it at length in the second half hour, but explain in a nutshell what you're doing with Folk Den.
What do I do in the Folk Den? Well, first of all, I got the idea back in '95 because I was listening to a Smithsonian Folkways album of traditional music. And it dawned on me that all the new folk singers were singer-songwriters. It had become an overwhelming trend that nobody was doing the child ballads, the old blues, the cowboy songs, the wonderful folk songs that I grew up with. And I thought, what's going to happen when Odetta dies or Pete Seeger dies? Well, now they have, unfortunately, but that folk tradition could get lost. You know, not enough people doing real folk songs, the old hundreds of years old songs written by anonymous authors. So I started putting them up on the internet. I've always been a gadget freak. So I knew how to work computers and record on computers and access the internet and send things up there for free download. And I started doing that every month in November of 1995. I haven't missed a month since then. There are over 260 free MP3s on the Folk Den, and you can download them anytime you want.
So you're archiving global folk music, not just American folk music. And,
right.
And Folk Den was one of the very first music streaming websites in internet history, and Roger McGuinn did it. He's the guy. He started it. Now, in the second half hour, we're going to explore Folk Den at length. This is a fascinating, it's an important online document of folk music. But I don't want the audience to get lost in the fact that you're a folk singer playing old songs, because you're continuing to be a singer-songwriter.
Yes.
And you're going to play a brand new song for us that you just recently
this is
wrote.
a new song I wrote within the last couple of months. I've always loved being on the sea, and so this is it's a contemporary sea song.
Well, it's called Edge of Water. It is Roger McGuinn on the WoodSongs, Old Time Radio.
On the edge of the water, under pink and rolling skies, we shall sail the great oceans till the day we should die. If the weather be gentle or ever so severe, we'll rejoice in our freedom and we'll be of good cheer. We first started voyaging in the year of '09, and then we made it 20 in a very short time. Soon it will be 21 in the year of 18, for to sail around Cape Horn has long been our dream. From the bay at Valparaiso to the coast of Argentine, through the Strait of Magellan that we've never seen, we shall strive to keep our course straight and our standards maintain, with our boots and our oilskins through the snow, ice, and rain. At the edge of the water, under pink and rolling skies, we shall sail the great oceans till the day we should die. If the weather be gentle or ever so severe, we'll rejoice in our freedom and we'll be of good cheer.
Beautiful song. So well written, it sounds old. Roger McGuinn is on our broadcast for the entire hour. We are going to find out in the second half hour more about this incredible online project that a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the founding member of the Byrds and Grammy Award winner Roger McGuinn put together. So stay right where you are. We will be back right after this.
Hi, this is Judy Collins, and you're exploring the world of grassroots music with folk singer Michael Jonathan on the WoodSongs Old Time Radio Hour.
And thank you very much, Judy. She's been on WoodSongs 6 times. We're here with the legendary Roger McGuinn for the entire hour. We're broadcasting worldwide on over 500 radio stations from Australia to New York to Dublin, Ireland. We're also on American Forces Radio Network. It puts this show on the radio in 173 nations, from South Korea to Kuwait, plus every single military base in the world, every U.S. naval ship in the world, every Coast Guard vessel sailing in North America gets to hear WoodSongs twice every weekend. And as always, we want to say hello to the men and women that are tuning in. Roger McGuinn is here for the whole hour. We were talking about a special project of his called Folk Den, where he is archiving since 1995 these amazing traditional folk songs. And what we decided to do is invite a very, very special guest. His family is the family that discovered Woody Guthrie, Leadbelly, Pete Seeger, Josh White, so many of these great American folk iconic artists, and he's a member of the family that accomplished that. Please welcome John Lomax to the stage. So John, your family has been immersed in the world of folk music and most importantly, educating and preserving it.
Well, that's what we've been doing since 1908, when my grandfather started recording cowboy songs. He was taking a recorder around on horseback and recording on wax cylinders. And that led to the first book, Cowboy Songs and Other Frontier Ballads, which was published in 1910.
And so your family just continued doing that, and your father and your uncle, Alan Lomax, especially Alan, became very involved in nurturing these folk artists, like Pete Seeger, like Woody Guthrie, and so many others.
It's been an ongoing tradition. I'm now the third generation of the Lomaxes to do this. And I have been a manager and an exporter of music and written about it since 1967.
Well, you manage Townes Van Zandt and so many others artists. I mean, you're a very experienced person. Steve Earle.
Casey Chambers.
Mm-hmm. And what you've done is you found recordings by your father, John Lomax Jr., right. that not only are his a cappella renditions of these folk songs, many of which you can find on Folk Den.
Yes.
Matter of fact, you're going to sing.
Found some.
Yeah, you're going to sing. The very first track of yours is the Folk Den song from last month that Roger McGuinn performed. But you're going to perform it the way your dad does on this beautiful album called Folk, where he sings the song a cappella and he also gives the short story about the song, right?
Well, the song is the story, and this was one of the very first songs that my grandfather recorded. He learned it in Fort Worth, Texas, from a quote-unquote gypsy couple who had set up shop. She was pretending to be a gypsy, he was pretending to be a blind guitar player, and they were fleecing everyone who they could.
Well, obviously, oddly enough, Blind Willie McTell is one of the artists that recorded this particular song, and so did Louis Armstrong, of all things.
Yeah.
So the song has a very wide, attractive berth, and you're going to sing it for us the way your dad did on the Folk album. You ready to go?
I'm ready, and this will be my version, which is not nearly as good as my father's, but here it goes from John Lomax III. It happened in Jacksboro, boys, in the year of 73, when a man by the name of Krigo came walking up to me. He said, "How you do, young fellow, and how would you like to go and spend one summer pleasantly on the range of the buffalo?" It's me being out of employment, boys, Mr. Krigo, I did say. This going out on the buffalo range depends upon the pay. But if you will pay good wages, pay transportation too. I think, sir, I will go with you on the range of the buffalo. It's now our outfit is complete, 7 able-bodied men. With Navy 6 and needle guns, our troubles did begin. Peace River is salty as hellfire. The water is never, I could never go. And engines watch to pick us off on the range of the buffalo. Our food, it was buffalo hock and ironwood bread. And all we had to sleep on was a buffalo robe for a bed. With the fleas and graybacks worked on us. Oh, boys, they are not slow. I'd say there's no worse hell on earth than the range of the buffalo. The season being ended, boys, Mr. Kriego, he did say that we had been extravagant and were in debt to him that day. We coaxed him and we begged him, but it was no go. We left his damned old bones to bleach on the range of the buffalo.
John Lomax III, his rendition of his dad's song on the CD, Folk. So let me talk to Roger and John together. I mean, what Roger's doing with Folkden, that is an American legacy project, isn't it? But by preserving these songs for anybody to have access to.
Spectacular. It's the same thing that we've been doing ourselves, and Alan, especially with the Global Jukebox, which you can listen to thousands and thousands of folk songs from all over the world.
I think it's 17,000 to be exact.
Right. Yeah. And Roger, you brought up an interesting point because you said that folk music became sort of the I, me, my scene, where artists were writing their own songs and not including the other past songs in the chain of their work.
Yes, it became unfashionable to do the traditional songs. It was very cool. I remember there's a scene in Don't Look Back where Bobby Newirth is talking about Joan Baez going, look at Joni, she's still doing Henry Martin, which is an old child ballad. You know, it's like, where's that at? You know, he's putting him down for that. So.
Well, this is a compliment to you, but you're sort of the modern day Pete Seeger by preserving all of this. Very few are doing it. So glad that John Lomax could be here with us, but Roger's going to dip into yet another song from the Folk Den. This is a tune called St. James Infirmary. He's ready to go with his 7-string guitar right here on the WoodSongs Old Time Radio Hour.
I went down to old Joe's barroom on the corner by the square. Drinks are being served as usual. The same old crowd was there. On my left was old Joe McKennedy. His eyes were bloodshot red. He turned to me and said, turn to me and said, I went down to St. James Infirmary. I saw my baby there, stretched out on a long white table, so sweet, so cold, so fair. Let her go, God bless her, wherever she may be. She can search this wide world over. She'll never find a sweet man like me. Now when I die, bury me in my straight leg shoe, box back coat, a Stetson hat. Put a $20 gold piece on my watch chain, so the boys will know I died standing pat. And now you heard my sad story. Boy, hand me another shot of that booze. And if anyone should ask you, I got the St. James Infirmary blues. Let her go, God bless her. Well, she may be, she can search this wide world over. She'll never find a sweet man like me.
St. James Infirmary from a great CD box set called Folk Den Number 1 by Roger McGuinn. And see, that's a cool song because you did it, the Doors did it, Cab Calloway did it, and Eric Burdon and the Animals did it.
And it came from an old blues called the Gambler's Blues before it was St. James.
So the legacy of a lot of these songs, I mean, the stories behind them sometimes can be fascinating, right? And when people go to Folk Den, are they getting just the song, or are you researching the history of them as well?
Yeah, I researched the history and put the story about the song there, and a picture, and then there's an MP3 and the chords. I put the chords up so you can learn how to play it. And you do all this in a studio in your home, right? Yes, I have a Pro Tools studio.
So it's really is it mostly just you and an instrument? Do you multi-track? What do you do?
Yeah, I record a track at a time and layer it. I do all the guitars and banjos and mandolins and bass and harmonies and everything.
Let's get back into your music. You're going to do a song that's been newly posted on Folk Den as we are taping this show, and it's called "Preacher and the Bear." It is Roger McGuinn. He's going to pick up his banjo. He's going for the 5-string.
Okay, I'm just learning this, so bear with me. Preacher went out hunting, it was one Sunday morn. Was against his religion, but he took his gun along. He bagged himself 3 mighty fine quail and 1 little measly hare. And on his way returning home, met a great big grizzly bear. Now the bear jumped out in the middle of the road right up to the preacher, you see. Preacher got so excited, he climbed up a cinnamon tree. Bear sat down upon the ground, and the preacher climbed out on a limb. He raised his eyes to the Lord in the skies, he said these words to him. Oh, Lord, didn't you deliver Daniel from the lion's den? Also delivered Jonah from the belly of the whale, and then 3 Hebrew children from the fiery furnace, so the good book do declare. Oh, Lord, if you can't help me, please don't help that bear. Well, the preacher was up in that tree, I think it was all night. Said, "Bear, if you bother me, I'll give you a terrible fight." Bear sat down, and the preacher got on the ground. Tried to cut him, but he made this sound. Oh, Lord, it didn't give me Daniel from the lion's den. So delivered Jonah from the belly of the whale, then 3 Hebrew children from the fiery furnace, so the good book do declare. Oh, Lord, if you can't help me, please don't help that bear. Well, they fought all the way to the river. The bear was hanging on. Bear was hanging on there, but the preacher was doing all right. He dragged that critter down to the river 3 times in and out. And the bear got up and limped away, and the preacher began to shout. Oh, Lord, didn't you deliver Daniel from the lion's den? Also deliver Jonah from the belly of the whale, amen. And Lord, it may not look like much from way up there, but the hardest job I ever done was baptizing that bear.
Good. Nice banjo playing. So now we come to the part of the show. You and Pete Seeger were personally responsible for my trajectory into the world of folk music, making tens and tens of dollars for many years. And the way that happened is I grew up in Beacon, New York, and my neighbor was a strange guy that was very pleasant. He claimed to be a musician, but he played the banjo, and to young rock and roll heads, that just didn't make much sense. I got an offer right out of high school to go to the Mexican border, Laredo, Texas, to work at a radio station. They gave me the midnight to 6 a.m. shift, and about 4 months in, I had to play what they called a classic record. So this particular night, I happened to pull out Roger McGuinn and the Byrds, a song called Turn, Turn, Turn. And I noticed that as the song was playing, and I'm looking at the song information, that it was written by my crazy banjo-playing neighbor. And I said, oh, that's who Pete Seeger is. And I called him up. I said, Pete, it's Michael from next door. I just found out that you're Pete Seeger. And there's this long pause, and he goes, well, I have been all my life. So now, your big hit, Turn, 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 was written by Pete Seeger. Well, Pete Seeger and God, because he took the lyrics.
Book of Ecclesiastes, right?
Tell me the story.
Well, Pete tells a story. He used to tell a story about how he came up with a song. And I'm going to do it in his dialect. He said, my publisher wrote me a letter. Said, Pete, you got to stop writing these protest songs because I just can't sell them. Can't you write something more like Goodnight, Irene? And he said, I got mad. And pulls a slip of paper out of his pocket, said, to everything there's a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. And he put a time for peace. I swear it's not too late to make it come out even. And that little phrase, turn, turn, turn. He said, I sang it around, not expecting it to be popular, and this guy I never met made a #1 hit out of it. Well, that was me.
That would be you. Well, let's go ahead.
There's more. I had met Pete Seeger, but he didn't remember because it was in Chicago, and he was scheduled to play a concert at the Navy Pier, but the concert got canceled for some reason. And Pete, being the wonderful guy he was, didn't want anybody to go away disappointed. So he did an impromptu concert on the loading dock of the Navy Pier. And I was one of about 20 kids standing around. I got to talk to him. I said, hey, Pete, you're really popular now. How do you account for that? And he said, well, I think it's because I get people singing along with me, and they hear themselves singing, and then they like me.
Well, you are very much the new Pete Seeger by what you're doing with this great effort of yours. One of your wonderful projects is called Stories, Songs, and Friends. It's 2 CDs. It's got a bonus DVD in it, which this story is told on the DVD, isn't it?
Yes, Pete himself tells it.
Pete himself tells the story, but you're going to perform the song for us to close our wonderful broadcast. The song is Turn, Turn, Turn. It is Roger McGuinn on the WoodSongs, Old Time Radio.
And please sing along on the turn, turn, turn part, okay? To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. Here we go. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. Everybody now. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. Here we go. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time for love, a time for hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late.
Wasn't it great having Roger McGuinn on the show for a whole hour? Thank you so much, John Lomax, for visiting our broadcast. It's an incredible thing to see the connection between an artist and the audience, and you add a great song to it. It's the holy triad of wonderful music, and you know, family legacies like the Lomax family, who had the great work that they did in keeping America's folk music traditions alive. And then you take an artist like Roger, who could be pursuing any kinds of commercial stardom and rock and roll and touring the world, and what he's doing, he's turning attention to his roots, to his passion, to the things that he loved. That is what an artist does. That's what a real artist does. When they look at the world around them, their community, their music, their heart, and their passion. It reminds me of something that John F. Kennedy said. He said, if art is to nourish the roots of this culture, society must set the artists free to follow their vision wherever it takes them, because we must remember that art is a form of truth. And let me tell you something. There's nothing more truthful than a family on a front porch with a guitar and a banjo singing those old family songs and bringing their community together. That's what Roger McGuinn is trying to do with the Folk Den Project. That is what John Lomax's whole family history is all about, and you're the recipients of it. You are the great audience of one of the greatest efforts in music ever. Go visit Folk Den online. My name is Michael Jonathan. I'm a folk singer. I am a song farmer, and we'll see you next week on the WoodSongs Old Time Radio. Good night.
You've been listening to WoodSongs broadcast number 900. Michael's opening song was Front Porch from the Front Porch album, featuring Melissa Jonathan on vocals, Uni Choi on cello, Aggie Clipsby and Sarah Payne on violin, Steve Frankie on viola, and Bob Bryan on bass.
Well, there's our show. I hope you had a good time. We sure had a good time making it. If you'd like to send me an email, I'd love to hear from you. My email address is michael@woodsongs.com. If you visit our website, there's a huge archive page of hundreds of past shows. While you're there, you can find out how you can become a song farmer. And speaking of the archives, here's a scene from one of those past shows now. We'll see you again next week on the WoodSongs Old Time Radio Hour.
Well, gonna jump down, turn around, pick a belly cotton. Gonna jump down, turn around, pick a belly day. Jump down, turn around, pick a belly cotton. Gonna jump down, turn around, pick a belly day. Oh Lordy, pick a belly cotton. Oh Lordy, pick a belly day. Oh Lordy, pick a belly cotton. Oh Lordy, pick a belly day. Me and my buddy gonna pick a belly cotton. Well, me and my buddy gonna pick a belly day. Me and my buddy gonna pick a belly cotton. Yes, me and my buddy gonna pick a belly day. Oh Lordy, pick a belly cotton. Oh Lordy, pick a belly day. Oh Lordy, pick a belly cotton. Oh Lordy, pick a belly day. Me and my buddy gonna wife gonna pick a belly day. Oh Lordy, pick a belly cotton. Oh Lordy, pick a belly day. Oh Lordy, pick a belly cotton. Oh Lordy, pick a belly day. Me and my family gonna pick a belly cotton. Well, me and my family gonna pick a belly day. Me and my family gonna pick a belly cotton. Well, me and my family gonna pick a belly day. Oh Lordy, pick a belly cotton. Oh Lordy, pick a belly day. Oh Lordy, pick a belly cotton. Oh Lordy, pick a belly day. Well, you and your wife gonna pick a belly cotton. Yes, you and your wife gonna pick a belly day. You and your wife are gonna pick a belly cotton. Well, you and your wife gonna pick a belly day. Oh Lordy, pick a belly cotton. Oh Lordy, pick a belly day. Oh Lordy, pick a belly cotton. Oh Lordy, pick a belly day. Well, me and your wife gonna pick a belly cotton. Yes, me and your wife gonna pick a belly day. Me and your wife gonna pick a belly cotton. Me and your wife gonna pick a belly day.
Closed captioning provided by the Deering Banjo Company. The television broadcast of the WoodSongs Old Time Radio Hour is presented in part by Kentucky Tourism. Information for families, fans, and corporate conventions about the bluegrass state of Kentucky is online at KentuckyTourism.com. By the Big Ass Fan Company, manufacturing industrial-sized fans for warehouses, ranches, schools, corporate offices, and the military worldwide. By the Martin Guitar Company in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, making handcrafted acoustic guitars since 1833. By VisitLex.com, providing information and activities to visitors of historic Lexington, Kentucky, the home of the WoodSongs Old Time Radio Hour.